There are two numbers that can describe the exact same subscription business and leave you with two completely different feelings about how it is doing. One of them can make a 5 customer side project sound like a real company. The other keeps you honest about how much cash actually lands in your account this month. Today I want to walk through both of them, MR and AR, what each one actually measures, why they are not simply the same number multiplied by 12, and the mistake I see solo founders make when they lean on the wrong one at the wrong time. I run a handful of small subscription businesses myself, and I look at both of these numbers every single month, sitting right next to each other in the same spreadsheet. I am not reporting to a board, and I am not trying to help anyone dress up their numbers for an investor deck. I am the person closing my own books, and I want these two figures to tell me the truth about my business, not make it sound bigger than it actually is. So let's start with the plain definitions, because almost all the confusion here comes from skipping that step and jumping straight to the acronym, what MR actually is. MR stands for monthly recurring revenue, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It is the predictable subscription income you can reasonably expect to collect again next month, added up across every active customer. If you have 40 customers paying $25 a month, your MR is $1,000. The key word is recurring. A one-time setup fee, a single consulting invoice, a one-off sale of a template or a course, none of that belongs in MRR because none of it repeats on its own next month without you doing anything new. MRR is meant to answer one specific question. If I did nothing else starting tomorrow, what would still show up in my account? That is why careful operators strip out the one-time noise before they trust the number. ARR stands for annual recurring revenue, and a simple version of the formula is your MRR multiplied by 12. If your MRR is $1,000, your ARR is $12,000. It takes the same recurring income and stretches it into a yearly view, which is genuinely useful for certain conversations, planning a yearly budget, comparing yourself to businesses that report annually, or thinking about where you will be in 12 months if nothing changes. But that phrase, if nothing changes, is doing an enormous amount of quiet work in that sentence, and it is exactly where people get into trouble. The assumption hiding inside the multiplication, multiplying by 12, is not a measurement, it is a projection, and it assumes this month repeats, unchanged 11 more times. Real businesses do not sit still like that. You gain customers some months and lose them in others. Prices change. A big account renews or does not. And as a snapshot dressed up as a forecast for a stable, mature business with slow-moving numbers. That snapshot is a reasonably fair guess. For a young or volatile business, it can be wildly misleading in either direction, making a lucky month look like a guaranteed yearly outcome, or making one bad month look like a full year of decline that was never actually coming. To really understand your MR, you cannot just watch the one total number bounce around. You need to break the change into pieces, what people call the MR waterfall. New MR is the recurring revenue from brand new customers who signed up this month. Expansion MR is the extra revenue from existing customers who upgraded or bought more. Contraction MR is the revenue you lost from existing customers who downgraded but did not fully leave. And churned MR is the revenue lost from customers who canceled entirely. Add the first two, subtract the last two, and you get your net new MRM for the month. Watching only the ending total hides which of these four forces is actually driving your number, and that is usually the more useful question to be asking. A worked example. Let me put real, round numbers on this so it stays concrete. Say you start the month with 200 customers paying $30 each, so your starting MR is $6,000, and your RR on that day would be $72,000. During the month, 15 new customers sign up at $30 each, adding $450 of new MR. 5 existing customers upgrade to a pricier plan, adding $50 of expansion MR. 8 customers downgrade, costing you $80 of contraction MR. And 10 customers cancel outright, costing $300 of churned MR. Added up, 450 plus 50 minus 80 minus 300, and your net new MRR for the month is $120. Your ending MRR is $6,120, and if you multiplied that by 12, you would get an ARR of just over $73,000. Notice how much more that waterfall tells you than the single ending number ever could on its own. Why ARR is the wrong lens early on. Here is where I see the most damage done. Imagine a business with only 5 customers. One of them cancels. Your MRR just fell by 20% in a single month. And if you multiply that new smaller number by 12, your ARR appears to collapse just as dramatically, even though what actually happened is that one person, for one personal reason, decided to stop. With such a small base, a single customer can swing your annualized number by thousands of dollars in either direction, and neither the spike nor the crash is telling you anything reliable about the year ahead. Early on, ARR is mostly noise wearing the costume of a forecast, when ARR genuinely earns its keep. None of this means ARR is a useless number. It just has a proper time and place. If you sell annual contracts, ARR is closer to the truth, because you actually have committed revenue locked in for the year, not merely projected month to month. It is also the right shape of number when you are planning a full year budget, thinking about hiring, or having a serious conversation with a potential buyer or partner about where the business is headed. The mistake is not using ARR. The mistake is reaching for it before your business has enough customers and enough history for the multiplication to mean anything close to a real promise. The trap of sounding bigger than you are. I want to be honest about a trap I have seen founders fall into, including tempting moments in my own businesses. ARR sounds more impressive than MRR. $72,000 a year sounds like a real company. $6,000 a month sounds like a side project, even though they describe the exact same business on the exact same day. Leading with ARR in your own head or in a conversation with someone else can quietly convince you that you are further along than you are, and that false confidence has a way of justifying spending you have not actually earned yet. Use ARR to describe scale to someone else if it is genuinely useful context, but keep MRR as the number you actually manage the business by. Booked versus realized. There is one more distinction worth knowing, especially if you ever sign annual deals. Booked or committed ARR is what a signed contract promises you over the year. Realized revenue is what actually lands in your account. Those two can drift apart if a client goes quiet, disputes a charge, or simply does not renew when the year is up. Treat the signed annual contract as a strong signal, not as cash already sitting in the bank, and keep watching the money that actually arrives month by month alongside whatever the contracts promise on paper. How to actually track this yourself. You do not need fancy software for any of this. A simple spreadsheet with one row per month and columns for starting MRs, new MRs, expansion MRs, contraction MRs, churned MRs, and ending MRs will tell you almost everything you need. Multiply the ending column by 12 in a separate column if you want the AR view sitting right next to it. The discipline of filling in that row every month honestly matters far more than which tool you use to do it. Shum Epar's necessity check. My prep customer set. One number worth watching alongside all of this is your average My Prep customers, your total MITH divided by however many active customers you have. It will not replace anything above, but it is a fast way to sanity check the other numbers. If your total MRR climbs while your per customer average is quietly falling, you are growing mostly by adding lots of small accounts, which changes how much support and effort each new dollar actually costs you. If the average is climbing instead, your growth is coming from bigger customers or from expansion revenue, and that is worth knowing before you decide whether to raise prices, change your plans, or chase a different kind of customer entirely. It takes 10 seconds to calculate, and it catches things the MRR totals alone will not show you. Common mistakes. A few mistakes show up constantly. The first is letting a one-time payment sneak into the recurring number, which inflates MRR and everything built on top of it. The second is only ever looking at the ending total and never breaking out the waterfall, so you cannot tell whether you are actually growing or just getting lucky with a couple of big new signups masking real churn underneath. The third is comparing this month's MR trend directly against last year's R figure as if they were measuring the same thing, when one is a monthly reality and the other is a yearly projection built from a single month snapshot. What these numbers cannot tell you, and here is the honest limit on both of them. Neither MR nor R says one word about your profit margin, what it actually cost you to acquire those customers, or why the ones who stayed decided to stay. A business can have healthy, growing MRR and still be losing money every month on marketing spend. These are revenue numbers, not health numbers, and treating either one as the whole picture of how your business is doing is a mistake, regardless of which one you prefer. Where to go from here? If this helped MRR and ARR finally click into place, that is exactly what I am going for. Every one of these explainers lives in writing at dataresearchanalysiscollection.com, the whole metric library in plain English, so you can come back to this one with your own numbers in front of you. No hype, no promises about your results, just the numbers explained clearly enough that you can make your own call. So to recap, MRR is your predictable recurring revenue this month. ARR is that same number stretched into a yearly projection, and the two are not interchangeable just because one is 12 times the other. Watch the MR waterfall, new, expansion, contraction, and churned, to understand what is actually driving your total. Save R for annual contracts and longer-term planning, not for making an early business sound bigger than it is. Next time I want to look at customer lifetime value, the number that tries to answer what a customer is actually worth to you over the whole relationship, and the honest ways it can fool you if you are not careful. I will see you in the next one.